Welcome to Grounded and Soaring. My name is Sam Shapiro, and I'm the head of school at Marin Montessori School. Today, I'm excited to talk with Noah Orgish, who is the educational technologist for Marin Academy High School. So Noah, you're the educational technologist at Marin Academy? Yeah. Okay. What is an educational technologist at Marin Academy? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I kind of wear a lot of different hats here at Marin Academy. But the overarching kind of description of my job and my role is to help students and teachers effectively use technology for their learning.
No, I'm just really excited to talk with you because you're deep in the educational space, in the high school educational space, the college prep high school educational space right now, when Chat GPT is really coming online and becoming ubiquitous. And AI is really something we're all now thinking and talking about. And so what I'm most curious in this conversation is to get a sense of, what are you seeing and thinking about around how these AI tools are going to be impacting education, and what you think we should be thinking about in terms of preparing our children for this world. But I wonder if we could start by, if you could help us just getting clear on nomenclature. So AI is thrown around a lot. What do we mean when we say AI versus something like searching the internet? And also, could you help differentiate what is Chat GPT within that AI space?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence is, the use of a computer and algorithms to basically train a model with data of some sort. That can be visual data, it can be text data, and you're training this computer to be able to look at all of the patterns in that data, in whatever you feed into it, to be able to then take different data and output something based off of what it's learned. ChatGPT is a type of AI that has been fed with, instead of images or instead of other things, it's been fed with, essentially ChatGPT has been fed with the whole internet up until, whenever they released it. And now they've had some updates where it can actually read the internet currently, but it used to be that it was just like up until, 2021 or whatever that date was. I don't remember exactly, that they stopped feeding that kind of algorithm. And ChatGPT is a large language model, so it takes all of this language, it reads and looks at all of this stuff, and basically what it does is it says, "Oh, in my body of stuff that I've been fed with, when these subsets of words are arranged in this order, the probability is that this word or this type of word or this section of word is going to show up next." So that's what it's actually doing. That's what ChatGPT is doing. It's not actually thinking. And I think this is a really important thing that people don't often kind of understand, is that AI right now is not actually intelligent. It is in certain ways, but it's not actually thinking for itself. If you've tried ChatGPT, you type in here's this thing that I want to accomplish in my class today. What should I do? Right. And it spits out this text, and it's pretty amazing to see. Right. And it's like, whoa, this thing totally understands me, et cetera. But it's not actually understanding you. It's not like there's some mind somewhere that's like actually responding to you. ChatGPT is just looking at probabilities. It's saying, okay, when somebody's been talking about this sort of thing, here's the probabilities that these words show up next. It's just because it's been trained on millions and millions and millions of words, it's able to know relatively well, or guess relatively well, what might be a good, follow-up line or sentence or word or paragraph to whatever you're talking about. I do think it's really important to recognize that there are pitfalls and downfalls and issues with artificial intelligence like this and kind of algorithms like this. As I said, these models are trained on kind of all of the internet. And while that includes Wikipedia and, actually, like, and Wikipedia is not, it's not particularly the most reliable, but it's not horrible. But so it includes kind of these reliable sources, but it also includes things like Reddit and Quora and 4chan and, like all of these things that you can imagine are just random users writing random things on the internet.
Right.
And with that, you have issues with reliability in terms of truth. You have issues in terms of like the biases that are present on the internet. And I know like this is a big thing, when ChatGPT first came out, people were talking all about like the ways that it perpetuated biases that we see in our world already, in a way that it just kind of regurgitated these things, these ideas that are kind of baked into our society and that we are trying to get rid of and trying to work against, but it still has all of these things kind of built into it.
I'm curious if you could share, what you're thinking about it at your school right now, and if students are using it, and kind of where you're at with it.
It's kind of hard because the cat is already out of the bag. I mean, I know that students are using AI in our school. Our first step is teaching students how to use it effectively and being aware of the fact that there are hallucinations and that there's bias baked in, and actually show it to them in real life, in real time, with, a topic that they do know enough about so that they can see, oh, like they can actually tear down the response from ChatGPT or whatever AI and be like, oh, it said this right here, but this actually isn't true because we know this from this site, from this source or whatever. And I think that's kind of really our basis. But I think we really need to educate our students in knowing like, hey, this might seem like it's like helping you, or this might seem like it can create a good paragraph, introductory paragraph for you. But think about what you're losing if you're just like, write me an introductory paragraph on an essay about Othello, right? Or, whatever it is, you're not actually using those thinking skills. And I think we need to be able to use it in different ways. And we can say, hey, what do you think? Here's my introduction to this essay that I wrote myself. What's some feedback you have? Like, do you understand my thesis or whatever? And use it kind of in that way with a grain of salt, right? Again, these things, like, especially when you're trying to get feedback to writing, it's going to direct you towards the norm, towards the probability. So it's not necessarily going to encourage the most creative or interesting or thoughtful writing. It's going to encourage, like the cookie cutter kind of stereotypical 5-paragraph essay format or things like that. In the context of school, where we're trying to teach students how to think for themselves and how to communicate for themselves, we don't want them to rely on a tool that does that, communication and thinking for them. But there's nothing wrong with using it to, I think, be like, to help prompt them towards more nuance or more complexity, or to help provide feedback.
So this is obviously it's still very wet, right? It's very fresh. When you think about Marin Academy in 5 years, in 10 years, where do you see this? Where's the trajectory? We're talking about probability. Where do you see AI heading potentially in terms of its influence in the education landscape?
It's hard to predict because it's changing really quickly and things are growing stronger and, more capable. Kind of, it seems every other month or whatever, there's a new model or a new capability. But I see it in use in a lot of different ways. Some folks have talked about how like this is the calculator of our generation. And just like people were maybe apprehensive about allowing the use of the calculator in math classrooms or the use of the internet as a research tool, it's going to be, and now, these days it's ubiquitous, and, teachers in math classrooms might say no using a calculator right now, or you have to use this certain type of calculator for this certain type of assessment. I think it might be something similar, moving forward, at least in the next few years, of teachers saying, hey, you can use this type of AI in this way, and you have to cite it, right? On this assignment, but you can't use AI on this assignment, or you can only use AI in my class to help you, like brainstorm or help give you feedback or whatever. And I see kind of there being some hopefully thoughtful guidelines and restrictions put in place.
It's interesting, Noah, because I remember when ChatGPT was first released, schools, were clamoring all over themselves to ban it. And it didn't take too long till they're like, wait a second, actually, we might have overreacted on this. And there actually could be some real benefits here that we need to explore. But it's kind of reminding me, I was a high school English teacher at the time when we went 1-to-1, every kid has a laptop. And there's been a real change in thinking around 1-to-1, which is that, there's some benefits to being able to access research tools and to work on a presentation together and share a Google Doc. But there's also some real downsides to the level of distractibility and kids surfing the internet during class. And so now we go to, I remember, we would even get to like, okay, screens up, screens down, laps. So to your point around, you could imagine AI or ChatGPT becoming, okay, this project, we encourage you, or you may use AI for this aspect of it, but you may not use it for this. So kind of finding where the really the salutary qualities are and harnessing that and trying to minimize or prevent the really negative detracting ones. I taught writing, and writing, I love writing, but not everybody loves writing. I love writing for writing's sake, and I don't expect everybody to love it, fall in love with it. But writing at least did something that was valuable for every student I taught, which is teaching and honing logical critical thinking. Right, because you have to, in order to write a successful essay, you're having to back up your arguments, your thesis with textual evidence, which is, wonderful training ground for logical critical thinking. So if students are writing less and producing original thought less, and I understand you're not advocating for that. In fact, you're hoping that doesn't happen, but that does seem like a likely scenario in terms of doing less original work, even getting feedback from ChatGPT about how do I get my thesis to be more compelling. It's maybe making me work less on that. And so I do also worry about if students are going to lose that access to the robust arena of critical thinking that happens in writing, it needs to happen somewhere else. And I'm not sure what my therefore is, other than just to share that's been a concern I've had. And so for younger students and even your age students at MA, it seems like really becoming savvy consumers of these products is going to be critical. I guess my question for you would be if you could share, when you think about the range of classes at MA, for example, from a physics class to an art class to a literature class, what at this point are you most excited about around the actual learning potential of these tools for students? Or are you excited? I should probably make that more neutral. Are you excited about anything for the learning potentials of AI and our students?
I don't know if I'm excited.
Okay, I appreciate your honesty. I really appreciate your honesty. Where maybe it's like, where are you at with it?
Yeah,
agnostic, skeptical, optimistic, conflicted?
I lean towards skeptical, I'd say, mostly because of things like that you mentioned. Is I want students to build their own thinking capacities and their own reasoning capacities, and I want them to learn how to do that and to hopefully get pleasure in building those skills, right? And seeing that growth in themselves. And I think like AI right now, I don't see it as a tool that is going to help, unless it's used really, really intentionally. I don't see it as a tool that's necessarily going to help students build that deeper reasoning and deeper critical thinking skills, as you kind of mentioned. I see it as something that the lure for kind of like a shortcut is it's very easy to access. I guess I feel skeptical. It's exciting for the ways that it can reduce kind of rote labor. But again, in a classroom context, for students, ideally, the activities that they're doing and the things that they're doing are not just rote,
Right.
non, things that don't require a ton of thinking. Like we want them doing cool projects that are relevant to the world as a whole, and like to authentic audiences.
I mean, I think about like I was just thinking about when you're talking about the real crisis we have around just factualness and what is truth. That just there was that famous quote about alternative facts, right? And so in some ways, it's pretty scary because if a percentage of what we get out from AI is going to be unreliable and inaccurate, we're just going to accept that that is still true and not be more rigorous in looking at sources and looking for truth. Because there is something called fact and there is something called truth. Let's take this output from AI and let's get really interested in being detectives, checking the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So getting students excited about being detectives in fact checking because of the ubiquity of AI, and they're going to encounter it so much in college, I expect, it could get them. It could be that one of the arenas where they're developing that critical thinking skill.
Mm-hmm.
If the teachers are doing that, though, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Parents and schools have to play a very active role in then guiding our kids to be, highly discerning around what they're reading online and from AI.
Mm-hmm.
Becoming somewhat skeptical, it seems like. Not cynical, but skeptical.
Yeah, I think a healthy amount of kind of skepticalness. I don't think that's a word.
I like it. I'll buy it. That's good.
We need skepticism around technology. That doesn't mean we need to be Luddites and, all say, no, I'm never going to use technology because it's scary and not useful. No, technology is incredibly useful. But we do need to examine the ways that it's impacting ourselves and our society and our culture in a way that's really thoughtful, and can oftentimes not happen because it's just so easy to accept these things. And there's so many things and new things. And I think it's really easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to try this, or like, let's do that, and not think about, okay, how is this? Like, slow down. Whew, this is cool, or this is scary. And let's think about, how, like, let's be skeptical about the ways that we actually implement these things.
Like, I'm thinking if I was a teacher again, and maybe someday we'll go back to the classroom, but I can imagine even lesson planning using ChatGPT. Like, I used to teach Macbeth, right? So I have an afternoon class with freshmen on Macbeth. And I know they're often pretty tired and easily bored in the afternoon. So I could go to ChatGPT and say, I'm on this scene in Macbeth, and from the perspective of a 14-year-old high school freshman, what would be an activity that would be interactive and hands-on that might bring this chapter to life? Well, I could totally see doing that, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it can be like a great prompter, right? Like you see something and it tells you like, oh, you could do like a story map, or you could do
Right.
a whatever, and it can be a great prompter for you to be like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Like that's a great idea. Like I hadn't thought about, this and that way, and I think there's total value in that.
And that would actually make me a better teacher. I'm the one who has to do the work. ChatGPT is not standing in front of 20 freshmen and teaching them Macbeth. I'm doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to get the sweat in and actually make the lesson come to life. But I'm learning like, oh yeah, that I hadn't thought about that project. I hadn't done that in so long. As you said, it prompted me. So I could see it in terms of going back to that idea of life enhancing, helping me become a better teacher.
I think it is possible that we are going to have, And I mean, I think this already happens in a computer science context of that's how students creatively think and create, right? In a way that is like art for them. And I think like we could certainly come to ways where students find really cool, interesting ways to use technology and AI creatively and artistically, right? To create something. And I think that's totally possible. And I kind of can't wait to see, you know, how that happens and how students and people start kind of thinking about ways to use AI in a really creative way.
I'm critical or skeptical of AI generated art because an artist will be losing that internal fulfilling experience of creating the art with brush and paint, say, on canvas. And I think what I heard you say is that they may not be using a literal brush and a literal canvas and literal paint, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be actually creating potentially.
Ultimately, as with so many things, you know, balance.
Yeah.
Is
funny how it keeps going back to balance every generation, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the conclusion for us as parents and as educators is ensuring that we're observing how our children are spending their time. You know, as Anne Lamont said, how we spend our days is how we spend our life, or how we spend our days is how we spend our life. And ensuring that we're guiding them toward balance of experience. And there's a lot that's you know, I think the richness of life is going to come from in real life experiences, in real life human connections, in real life connections to nature. And there's a lot to be gained and experienced in these other tools that are developing and changing. Mm-hmm. Well, it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it, Sam.
Really appreciate it. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yep. See ya.